When I was growing up, I told my parents repeatedly 3 things. That I don't want to grow up and be a normal, boring old adult. 2, I don't ever want to own a suit for a job. And 3, I will always listen to punk rock and heavy metal. And for me, those are the 3 things that if I do this, I will have achieved not selling out. Because selling out for me when I was a kid was a really big deal, especially as a music fan and just a fan of any art and culture in general. Because selling out was that thing your favorite band did when they got famous and you were like, no. It's your favorite artist or favorite actor who did indie films and all of a sudden now is doing like big blockbuster explosion films. You're like, no. Selling out is that compromise that someone seems to make that you feel for yourself or for that person has compromised their integrity and it changes the way you see them. Selling out, especially for bands and for musicians, it gets hard when you're trying to be successful and achieve success, but you also want to keep your punk rock integrity intact. Bands like Green Day, got on the radio and it made a bunch of people angry. Me as a metalhead loved Metallica, and Metallica all of a sudden put out the Black Album and became the sellout band, but also came up with one of the greatest quotes of all time when it comes to selling out. Jason Newsted, the bassist, when asked, do you think you're a sellout as a band? And he looks around. He goes, yeah, I'm a sellout. We sell out every seat in the house, every time we play. And I've always thought, okay, I want to have that kind of sellout integrity. So it's like sort of selling out, but without selling, maybe it's selling out the right way. Well, for me, in my career, my job, I had graduated from a Christian liberal arts college with a degree in youth ministry. So try to do the mental punk rock youth ministry church math there. And so I was like, all right, I'm going to work with high school kids. So I went to work with high school students in Southern California. So all right, keeping the youth thing going, Southern California, hotbed of punk rock and heavy metal. Then I went to work in a mega church, and then I needed a suit. I needed a suit for funerals and weddings. And that became a little tough. But because it was just for those 2-3 times a year, we'll leave the suit thing to the side. But I kept my integrity intact. I didn't sell out just yet because I was working with high school students in the inner city, urban Orange County, California. And I was taking these students to lots of rock shows, taking them to punk shows, enjoying music together, enjoying life and culture, trying to help these kids in the arts. And as a part of what I did as a youth pastor, I had to create flyers and programs and design stuff for events. So I got some bootleg Photoshop from my dad, and I was working on some flyers and stuff, and I really enjoyed the process. And over the years working with high school students, I loved designing. All of a sudden, I kind of liked designing more than working with high school students. And at the church, it was cool because they would start asking me, hey, can you help design us some flyers for some events? We're doing this big outreach thing. Can you help design something? And I really liked the design thing. And one day when the bureaucracy and politics of working in a mega church that was crazy weird and on TV and super bizarre, I said, you know what? I'm declaring to the heavens right now, I'm going to be a graphic designer. I'm going to be a creative. I'm going to leave this church world behind. And that was a scary day for me because I'm like, oh no, how do I keep my integrity intact? How do I not sell out and make this huge transition? So today, I want to talk about a few things I've learned over the past few years as I transition from one place to another place and trying to keep my punk rock integrity intact and not selling out or selling out the right way. And the first way I think about selling out the right way is getting in the pit. If you've ever been to a punk show or a hardcore show or a weird alternative show back in the late 90s, you've seen the mosh pit, right? Maybe some of you have been in it. Maybe some of you have seen it and been like, that stinks and that's weird. And those are guys throwing haymakers over there and I don't like this. The mosh pit is that place at a show, especially a punk show, where that's where the action's happening. As I'm getting older, I feel like I'm the old guy at a rock show when I go out, and so I sit around the edge and I'm in the back. My buddies and I do that thing where we just lean and kind of nod our heads while there's a crazy pit happening ahead. And a few years ago, my buddies and I were at a show, and they were like, can we stop being the old guys? Can we get in the mix? And so we ran up front and had so much fun. Because when you're in the pit, that's where the action's at. You're an active participant in the music. And what's great about the pit are 2 things. The first one, danger. Danger is an amazing motivator and an amazing thing that keeps you sharp, that keeps you focused, and it keeps you grounded. When there's a little danger going on, your head's always on a swivel. You're not comfortable. You're in the moment. You're present. And danger kind of makes you feel alive. Danger at a punk show, it kind of goes hand in hand. There's this venue in Metro Atlanta called the Masquerade. And the Masquerade is where all the punk bands play in Atlanta. And it's this old wooden building that used to be a mill, and it looks like it's about to fall over with a good hot wind. And then you go inside, and there are 3 venues inside of it. To add to the danger component, there's heaven, there's hell, and there's purgatory. Those are the 3 venues. So already you're kind of like, this is awesome, but it's kind of scary and weird. And the danger component's amazing. And because it's an old building, there's these old floors that when there's 1,000 kids in this place jumping around, the floors do this. And you're like, oh, this is the last day I'm going to see my family. Okay. And the danger component keeps you on your head on a swivel, keeps you looking around, keeps you focused on the things that are important. When my wife and I decided to move from Southern California to Atlanta, Georgia, to follow a job in design for me, it was my first design gig. No one else would hire me because I worked in churches forever. I had no resume. I had no book. I had no nothing. These guys took a chance on me, and it was dangerous. We moved from a place where we had a community to a place we didn't know anybody. But the danger kept us frosty. It kept us sharp. It kept us grounded. It kept us connected. That's like being in the pit. The second thing after danger that I like to focus on is community. This may sound counterintuitive because in a pit, it doesn't feel like people are being very hospitable. It feels like they're fat, sweaty dudes just throwing haymakers at each other, and it's like, I might get stabbed. I don't know. But really, when you break it down, in a pit, it is a bunch of like-minded people gathering together, albeit just trying to viscerally enjoy the moment and be present. But we're all like-minded, and we're all a part of a community. If you've ever been a part of one, and it's been a few years since I've really been in there throwing some crazy knuckles or picking up change or whatever it is, what I like to do is what's really cool is when someone falls down, everyone stops and picks that person up. It's an amazing thing to see because it's just super animalistic and crazy, but the minute someone falls, we pick each other up. There's an amazing community there. After we moved to Atlanta, the company I started working for was an upstart web company, and they lost their funding after 6 months. And guess what? We all got fired, or let go, as they say. And at losing my job, it was like, well, here comes the danger component again. I'm now jobless. I don't have a career, really. I don't have much to show for. I've started this whole thing. I moved to a new land. But by the grace of God, there was a community of people there who we met through working in Metro Atlanta, who were in young bands who we became friends with, who later would get signed to major record labels, who needed artwork help. Then we meet with other young bands who were like, hey, or young brands and young businesses that, hey, we're starting this business. Can you help me design something? And before you know it, this community of people that were there to kind of catch us and pick us up helped us kind of launch and get us going and kept propelling us towards success and got my business going and got it off the ground. By getting in the pit, having a little bit of danger and a lot of community, we kept going. And I still kept my integrity intact, and I sold out the right way. The second idea I have is weakness as uniqueness. Now, this weird way of selling out the right way is determining that your weakness is not a horrible, horrible thing, but it's a thing that makes you amazing and makes you unique. What I've learned in all these years of working in creativity and design is that not only just the most talented people are always not the most successful. Talent is one of those things we do measure. Proficiency is one of those things we do measure. But sometimes those are the guys who are in the basement noodling on the guitar. They're super talented, but they're not the most successful. There are a lot of bands who start out terrible because they have fire and they have energy and they're excited because they maybe not be the most talented. What they do, they turn their weakness, not being very good at guitar perhaps, and turn it into a uniqueness by playing faster, turning up the reverb, getting crazy. As a designer, when I started my career, I kind of realized there's a big flaw that I thought every designer must have, which is the ability to draw. It's kind of a big deal, and I can't draw very well. And having that in my life was kind of frustrating. But what I did was I looked for other ways to find new avenues to be creative and kind of hide the fact that I'm not very good at drawing. So I started taking photographs, and I started falling in love with photography. Then I started using some weird artwork techniques and some weird software techniques that someone made, and all of a sudden it became the unique look for what I did. I turned my weakness into a uniqueness, and that made me hopefully stand out amongst other people when I'm trying to fight for a job. One of my favorite examples of this, being a metalhead, and there may be some metalheads here today, is Tony Iommi, the guitar player for the band Black Sabbath. Tony Iommi is credited with creating the sound that invented heavy metal. But when Tony Iommi was 17 years old, he was in a garage band, loved playing guitar, wasn't in Black Sabbath yet, but he was working in a factory. And one day he had a factory accident. A machine press came down and lopped off his tips of his ring finger and middle finger on his guitar hand. And I don't know if you know, missing fingers and playing guitar is kind of tough. But he went home determined to figure something out, and he started playing on his guitar. And the regular strings hurt his new fingers. So he got fatter guitar strings, got bass strings, and put it on his guitar. Gave him a nice lower tone, but it still kind of hurt a little bit. So he developed these little caps that he'd put on his fingers. And he'd play, and it felt better. And it had this low, muddled tone that would go on to kind of create the sound that invented an entire musical genre, heavy metal. He let his weakness determine his uniqueness. And I think that's really important in not selling out, because that keeps you grounded and that keeps you focused and reminds you that you're not perfect. And in all those ways, you can turn a negative into a positive. The third and last idea I have for you in selling out the right way is young me moments. Now this sounds weird and like, what does young me moments mean? Young me moments. Have you ever had those moments where if you said to yourself, if 16-year-old me were here right now, they would not believe what is happening? Those moments where you're like, wow, I once dreamed of this. I'm so glad we're here. Because very often we don't take time to look back. We just keep looking forward, right? We barrel forward in what we're doing. Young me moments are those moments where you sit back and say, young me would have loved this. Being a lover of music, as you can tell, we would buy records all the time. My buddies and I would buy records all the time and have to drive an hour to the closest record store. And we'd drive an hour, save up our money, get over to Fort Wayne, Indiana, and we'd go to the CD store, buy a bunch of records, and get to the car and just open them up and start pouring into them. We'd look over the liner notes. My buddy was a real weirdo, and he would open it up and sniff the packaging. And I'm like, dude, what is wrong with you? But he's like, that's how much in love with this product we were. And we'd look over the liner notes and be like, okay, this guy played guitar here. These lyrics are amazing. And especially me as a creative mind, even though I wasn't doing design yet, I'd be like, who did this artwork? This is amazing. And as a drummer at the time, too, I wanted to be like, one day, I want to have my name in these liner notes as a drummer. That's one of my goals. Again, 16-year-old goal. Sure, everyone wants to be a rock and roll drummer, right? Have their name in liner notes. A few years after getting my business going, I started doing projects for friends. Back to the community aspect, doing projects for friends and their bands. And one of the first records I got that I designed, I opened it up and was just like, okay, cool, they printed this correctly. This looks nice. There it was. I saw my name in the liner notes. I was like, all right, I may not be in here as a drummer, but I'm in here as a crazy graphic designer. That's a young me moment. 15-year-old me would be freaking out if he knew this day was happening. And I find these young me moments are those things that keep us grounded, that keep us established, and keep us kind of focused on what's ahead, but reminding us not to forget the past. Kind of reminding us of our childlike heart. Can you imagine, there's probably 1 million Disney illustrators that work for Disney who, when they were kids, grew up on all those Disney films. I bet you every day they walk into work and see the big ears and they see all the crazy Aladdin illustrations and this, that, and the other. They just don't go, man, if 8-year-old me had any idea. And that probably is a point of success. Because for me, I was never a big fan of spreadsheets. I was never a big fan of absolutes that said, these are the 4 things you have to do to be successful. I get it. You have to make money. But if you can make money, cool, but make your end goal the things that make you happy, it's these young me moments that determine that. The last illustration I'll give you is when I finally felt like I had arrived as a professional creative. And that's the moment someone actually pays you for being creative. And it was this perfect storm and this perfect amalgam. There was a heavy metal and punk rock festival in Metro Atlanta, and this blog needed a photographer. And they called me, and they actually wanted to pay me. So I got to go to this festival with my buddy who was writing the stories. And at this festival, it was like, I can't believe I'm here right now. All my favorite bands, I got that cool backstage pass laminate, like I can go anywhere. I'm just like, hey guys, I can come in, it's cool. And it was just an amazing experience. So all my favorite artists. But that wasn't really the moment that blew my mind. The moment that blew my mind and says, all right, I'm doing the right thing. This is the direction I need to be going, is when I got invited by one of my favorite bands of all time to have a hamburger with them. Did they say, can you design my next record package? Can I give you $1 bazillion? No. We just had a hamburger and talked about football for like 2 hours. It was amazing. And that was the out-of-body moment I had that if 15-year-old me or 18-year-old me knew this was going to be happening, they would freak out and not believe it. It's about selling out the right way and remembering why you're where you're at and keeping your feet firmly planted on the ground. And we do that, I think I do that in 3 ways. Get in the pit. It's a little dangerous, but there's community around you to help you. Remember, your weakness is your uniqueness. It's those things that maybe you're not the best at, but they help you find other ways to rise up. And the third and last point is those young me moments that keep you focused and grounded and keep you in the right trajectory on the right path. Hopefully that path is on the path to selling out just the right way. Thank you, and I'll see you guys in the pit.